All right, so welcome back. I am Bo, the FPV guy, and with me today I have the new Align M480 large quad. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you what we do today so you don't sit halfway through this and think it's going to be something else. I'm going to unbox the Align M480, and I'm going to talk about the Align history a little bit, and then I'm going to build this aircraft. So this video is going to be an unbox, bunch of chatter, and a general build video that's going to tell you how this is built, and I'll commentate on the product as we go along. So if you're ready for that, grab a coffee, sit down, and follow along as we unbox this. As usual, I'm visiting with my friend Matt, and he's kindly providing a wonderful kitchen and expert knowledge that I simply don't have. So looking at the box here, this is actually a smaller box than a lot of boxes we see. And the standard kit, one thing that's worth noticing, up in the corner here of a genuine product, there's going to be a hologram sticker on the front page, and also a serial number on the hologram sticker, and also on these tapes here are actually embossed with Align. So they're trying to make this a genuine product experience. On the side we have some information, and on the back side we can see what's in the kit mostly. So let's crack it open. And this is what's called a radio ready kit. So in addition to that, I have a Valkyria radio here today, but you could just as well use a Futaba 14GS or any other radio. But I'm going to use a Valkyria radio because I already have one, and I don't like having 5 different radios when I go somewhere. So I'm going to cut this open. That was the one end. And here's the other end. One of the things, and the reason I mentioned this, Align is pretty serious about they want this to be sold through dealers. Dealers that they hope is going to provide support to you guys, the users. So here's the box. I'm always worried about pulling it up and then it all of a sudden just goes all over the place. So that can go on the floor, and more tape. So we're gonna cut in here, and on the bottom, and that feels like it's gonna come open this way. More boxes. I might keep this one around to build on, so it's easier to see. This is a very, very sturdy box. So this is definitely being shipped in a very solid way. And up here, the first thing we find is the landing skids. That is some serious motors. That is basically a ready-to-go unit here with a cable that's ready to plug in probably to a PMU or a power distribution board. It says don't get your fingers in the way here, so really be careful. But interestingly, very good design. They have made enough space that you cannot really cut your finger in here. And it's a linear servo sitting down here pushing up. So that's a nice design, and some seriously beefy legs. So that, we're not gonna need the legs yet. Let's see if we can find ourselves an instruction manual. And as I'm putting these down, Matt is actually grabbing these and looking very interested. Here is random parts that looks like a battery strap, or maybe a radio strap. That's a battery strap. Here's some, I like that. They're including the wrenches we're going to need, so it looks like the tools required are included in the kit. We'll find that out soon enough. And let's go to the main frame. I'm guessing they have included this in the order we're going to use these. And below the main frame is a box named Tube Booms. So that's going to be basically the main product we're going to attach to the main frame today. Let's put one of these things down. There, we got 2 booms, and for good measure, they actually come on a board like this. So what I'm gonna do, as I proceed with the top, I'm gonna hand this to Matt and ask him to remove this from the board. What way do you want it? Let me hand it to you right here. So Matt is taking that off the board so we can get a closer look at one of those. And what I'm doing in the meantime, I am cracking into the box named mainframe. Woohoo! And here is the first thing I pulled out of the mainframe box is the multi-copter control unit. That is really the heart of what Align is doing here, because, and it says here it has App Store, Google Play, and Windows support. So you can use this with your iOS, your Android tablet, or with your Windows computer. But the controller, the flight controller, is the source of how these things are gonna work. Let's see if it's shy or it will come out and we can take a look at it. So we have a yellow box here, some foam, and that is a GPS unit right there. Let's take a look at that. Has some double-sided tape on the other side, and we don't need the foam right now. In here, we are finding, we're not actually finding any controller in here. So I'm guessing the controller is already in the thing. But here's the cables we're gonna need to attach it. And here's the GPS. So that is the control box. Better put that down here before I lose it. And I saw Matt putting one of these down.
Those are some serious big motors.
These are declared big motors by Matt, and you know he loves motors. So what we have here is they're ready to go. In the one end, you have the plus and the minus power option, and then you have an ESC cable here saying motor 2, so it's pre-labeled. All we have to do is plug this into the controller, and we're ready to go. They come with a traditional helicopter wing clip right here, so we're gonna pull this out. And Matt is measuring it, but I think I heard that these are almost 55mm motors. And here is the propeller. Let's digress a little bit here, because a couple of days ago, Align made an announcement on the Facebook page to please Loctite these screws. And what they're talking about is the screws holding the blades here. By the way, those screws are 2.5mm. So there is an included Allen wrench, but I have one with a handle here. And I'm gonna pop these off. Whoa, that was really, really loose. So this screw is not in very solidly. And I'm just gonna pop that off real quickly here. See if we can get the screw out without losing it. Okay, that wasn't that easy. The one blade is out. It has a bushing, a brass bushing down the bottom. And here comes the other one. And Matt and I are not particularly keen on the idea of using Loctite, because Loctite has been known to be able to affect or crack plastic. So what we usually use is a Durango or an axial Loctite or tread locker like this, which what we have to do is put it on the tread of the screw and then screw it back in here. But let's take a look. Here's another blade, and the next screw is a 2mm screw, so we're just going to change the bit. All right. And get under this lid of the motor. So here's the motor cap, and this is basically just a lid that goes down to the motor itself. This is a monster motor, but it's beautifully made. And let's turn this around somewhere here. Turn that to the other way, you can see it. There's a little hole in the motor, and that's the shaft lock screw right there that attaches the bell to the shaft. So you want to make sure that one is locked in place, and if need be, give it some tread locker, but you probably shouldn't have to. Just give it a good twist and that should be in place. So let's put these ones back on. And you don't really have to watch that, so I'm just going to fast forward. So I attached the motor cap back on, and I'm going to put the last blade on, and that goes in nicely. And now what I'm going to do is put that down real quickly and put some tread locker, the little axial tread locker, on the actual tread of the screw. So we're going to do it over the plastic here. And by the way, it has some blue stuff here that is dry tread lock, and it works the first time, but after you tighten and loosen it a couple of times, dry tread lock is not so good. So that's why, see if I can do this one-handed. I'm gonna get it up here and down here. Stuff like this is much better to be done without a crowd of critical YouTubers watching me. So, but that worked pretty good. So we got tread lock on the screw, and we have set it in. Now here's the thing, you can't tighten it down really hard, and that's one of the reasons you need tread lock. And I want to come and say something here. I noticed a couple of people was already writing, oh my God, we need to fix something and we have to put tread lock on these screws. When is Align going to fix this problem? This is not a problem. We are dealing with a helicopter blade that has to be able to fold together. The only way that's possible is by having screws that is locked in place, and tread lock is a time-honored technology to do that. So it's not a problem. This is simply how it has to be done. So let's fold this one back up. And may I repeat again, the reason I'm using the plastic safe tread lock from Axial or Durango is because it's good. It's made for use with plastic, so it won't potentially fracture this plastic. This one is ready. Let's put it down, and we're going to do that to the other arms as well. And then great. So I'm pulling the manual out of the main body case, and let's get the main body and move on to start attaching some arms. In the back here is this seat, I guess it's called, for the GPS. And how do we get into this? Oh, this is just built really beautiful. And down here is where we attach the legs. And then there's two slots here. This is to attach the two tubes for a track to hold the gimbal. And I want to tell you one thing while I'm looking right here. There is a little feature that Align made me aware of. Down here is additional holes to move these tubes out wider, so it's possible to mount correctly a zenmuse, a DJI zenmuse on this. You can move these two out to get a wider footprint to mount a DJI zenmuse if you already have one of these. It's a very clever feature that they have made their product compatible with other products out there on the market. As it comes right now, it's about 20 millimeters too narrow for the zenmuse, but that can be adjusted. There. It's kind of a tight shell. Wow.
That's fiberglass.
That is fiberglass. I gotta say, I did not expect this to be fiberglass. That's obviously a direct takeoff from Align's making of helicopter canopies. Because, and again, this has your serial number right here with a hologram sticker. So, incredibly beautiful canopy, beautiful paintwork, stiffer than I would have anticipated, and I haven't seen fiberglass shells on anything yet. In here, this is now the main body, and I think we have to pause the tape and actually read the manual before we give you incorrect instructions. But here's the controller. Here's the GPS mount, And the controller then has a number of spaces here saying M1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this controller from Align is already made that it can handle up to an octocopter, even though we of course know that Align right now have a quad and they have a hexa. The 690 is the hexa, and what we're building right now is the 480 quad. So let's break this open and start installing. Okay, so following along in the manual, the first thing it says to do is remove the canopy. And the second thing it says to do is turn this over and install the tubes for the gimbal mounting. So we're going to start right here, release these screws, and in the box with the motor arms was also 2 tubes. We're going to put them in right here, and I'm giving them maybe 10 millimeter on the back end, and I'm tightening them up. I gotta tell you, just a side comment, the quality of the craftsmanship on all these parts is exceptional. I don't think I've seen any part that beats this. This is really, really beautifully made. And this of course comes back to that even though we haven't heard about Align in the multicopter space yet, they have been making the T-Rex 700 for many, many years. And they've been making gasoline helicopters for years. So they know how to build a beautiful copter. And the parts here testify to that. All right. And here you can see the main battery cable plug right here. And I pulled the battery out and it'll fit in. There's kind of like a little recessed tray here. And it fits beautifully in there. So that's good. We're going to be able to fly later today. Grab a Allen wrench. And remember what I said, the screws are included, or the Allen wrenches you're going to need for this is included in the kit. I'm just using one with a handle. It's a 2 millimeter I'm using right now, and we have also been using a 2.5 millimeter. So that sounds to be the ones we're going to be using. There. And you're going to massage this a little bit to make it come apart. There we go. Oh, thank you, sir. And they're actually supposed to be a bit off center. So we're just going to make this one. And let's see. Notice there's a little hole on the front of this. So this hole has to fit into the matching hole here, and that will keep it from rotating when you land. So then this comes back on, and we can adjust the amount of offset later. There, and the way you know what way the offset here is going to go is that the legs are further back, and we're going to have the camera in the front and the battery in the back. So these ones are going to go on here, and this is really an easy build so far. There is 2 or 4 screws just sitting and waiting for us to be unscrewed and installed. And here we go. We have to take them out, and I'm putting them on the box right now, but I really recommend that you get yourself like a little small dish or something like that to put screws in, so that they all roll down to the center of the dish and you don't accidentally lose them. Like I just dropped the screw off the edge of this box. Figures. I better not take any chances and put them down here. This is beautifully made. I cannot get over how nice this is. And then the screws goes back in, goes back down. I think before you start assembling this, I would recommend going out, or when you order this awesome aircraft, go out and get yourself a Allen screwdriver with 2 and 2.5 millimeter. That's gonna make a lot of this installation a lot easier and faster. Plus, you wanna have those tools in the kit you use when you fly this thing. There we go. And this one didn't come down really easy, the last one. That's because I didn't follow my own advice. The easiest way to install things like this is to put all the screws in and tighten them, not fully, just kind of loose, till you have all 4 screws in, and then come back and tighten all 4 of them down. There we go. So, while I install this leg, Matt has prepared the next leg. And before I start installing it, I'm just gonna really quickly hold these 2 next to each other and make sure the spacing of these legs is about the same, and that looks halfway good. So I'm gonna put it down here and put 1, 2. Remember what I was saying, it's easier to get the screws in when they're not fully tightened yet. So I'm just putting them down without them being tightened. That went much easier. And then I'm tightening it down here. The aluminum part here is really beautifully made. It's like a machined part for the retracts. There we go. And I'm just tightening it. I'm not like over cranking this. I'm just tightening it tight, but with my fingers without putting my hand into this. You could put thread locks on this, but I don't really think there's enough vibration going on in the retract that's gonna be necessary. So there we have it. The next thing is gonna be, we're gonna turn this over. And I think we can move the build box out of the way, because now we got legs. And don't go anywhere without the manual. So the next thing the manual tells us to do is to remove the top carbon plate. To do that, we have to remove a number of little screws all the way around here, and also these 4 screws. Notice these 4 monster size screws right here. This is the quick screws for the legs. So 1, 2. Before I proceed, I went and grabbed a saucer here, because I don't want all these screws to run all over the table, and next thing I know, we don't have them. So all the loose screws goes in a saucer, and the saucer goes down here, and now we can continue unscrewing. And every screw you have to remove is actually shown in the instruction manual. So you have to give the instruction manual a quick glance to make sure you don't take something out you don't want to remove. That said, every screw on the top deck needs to be removed, so carry on. Okay, I have removed all the cables. I'm gonna take the lid off, and as I said, even though you should read the manual, every screw on the top deck comes off, so remove all the screws and you're ready to go. The other thing I'm gonna do right now is I am gonna remove the cable from the flight controller that goes down to the PCU. So let's see if that pulls out here. That pulled out, and it has marked up. So you have to be able to read the words up on that cable. So there this is. We're taking it down and going to the next page on the instruction manual. The first thing we need to do is release the cable ties on the retracts, and we're going to pull the retracts up here. And it's worth noticing the retract actually has 2 positions. In this case here they are in the back, and here is now my retract cable coming up, and then there's one more on the other side. So we're unwinding that, and these are not too big, they're just as big as you need them, and where they need to go is right in here. There's a hole, and it comes up like that. Having pulled the retract wires, the next thing we're going to do is find the external status LED. And that is in this box here. I'm gonna hand this to Matt. He's the genius. And then I can keep putting parts on. We have to cut this. Be careful you don't cut the cable, because if you cut the status cable, so that is gonna come right over here. We're gonna put it on the retract right here, and we're gonna run that cable also through the same hole right above the retract. Since this has been machined, make sure to wipe it with something first, just so that it, geez, that is nice. The little external retract thing is now mounted on, or the external signal indicator is mounted on the retract bar, and it is just the right size. You're gonna love that. So here is our 3 cables. We're doing this is actually the second time around. We are, because right here is a little loop for nice cable management, and I'm gonna make sure there's no other little loops here. There isn't any other little loops. So this is gonna come in right here.
Yeah, it's not mentioned in the manual.
And this goes in number 2, and the S needs to be up. There's one, and here comes the other leg, and it goes through that little loop here. So the retracts goes in port number 2 and 3, and the S needs to be up. I actually like controllers where these can only go in one way, like the JR system. I can't reach, so I'm going to use a pair of needle nose pliers. There. When you get, your finger gets too old and too big and they don't fit, needle nose pliers are great. And the signal indicator also goes through the little loop here for the cable management, comes up here, and we have to check, and S has to be up. There. One of the great things with the way signal on the one side and negative on the other side, so generally speaking, you don't fry something if you accidentally get them the wrong way, but why install them the wrong way? All right, there we are. What's next, sir? That is the one that goes up. That is the cable to the APS-M controller. There, it's in, and you need to be able to read the lettering on it saying up. Are we going to a motor arm? Woohoo! And between Matt and me, we should be able to figure this out. We've probably built 1 or 2 multi-rotors already. This is brilliant. Look at this. There's no loose screws. They're all pre-installed where they're gonna go. So I'm gonna have to remove these 2 and screw them back in, and then we're ready to go. Now before we do that, I want to talk or show you, we were talking about and discussing the right amount of tension for this. And the way this is supposed to be, the tension on the lid, basically if you shake it, hold this here and shake it, the prop should not move. It should move easily, but it shouldn't move by itself. And if you tap it on your hand, the thing moves down. So now you know you have the right amount of tension on the propeller fasteners here. So having said that, I'm gonna put the little propeller Align multicopter propeller guard back on. I am gonna remove the bottom screw here and stick it through the bottom. Matt took my propeller. Before we install this, let me show you a quick little feature that Align put in here. They made a little hole so you can put a screwdriver in here in this center thing and avoid it moving while you install the arm. So we're gonna make sure that that hole is facing out to the side. We also here have the plus and minus and the signal. So I'm gonna take the bottom screw off like that, and I'm gonna put that down. and stick it through from below. And I'm just using my fingers right now, so I am gonna come back and revisit this. So that was one, and then I'm gonna put one of these temporary holders. That's the quick removal holder here. It only works if you actually find the right hole to put it into. There we go. And then I can do the one from below. Just make sure I have. What size that is? That's a 2.5 millimeter. Aha. And remember I was mentioning the little hole that moves around? In this case it is turning, so I am gonna move it. And there it is. And now I'm holding it, and it's possible to tighten it. So I inset the screwdriver bit into the little hole here, and now I can take it out. Whoa, that was the first one. Okay, that was 4 arms installed. It's a little bit of a fiddle. The next thing we're gonna do is plug each one of the motor wires into the power control unit here. These are really good banana plugs on these motors. They are not gonna be accidentally popping out. And that's of course very good. Take that underneath here. I like the way they have the PMU set up right in the middle of the arms. So we're not running any motor wires anywhere else. Sometimes people design with a PMU underneath or on the side or something. This is definitely designed by people that makes flying stuff, because there's as little cable as technically possible, really. And one of the things I noticed while we were putting this on, there's actually more holes for arms because the same body is being used for the hexacopter. So now the black cables goes on the other side. So the black cable goes with the black cable, positive to positive, negative to negative, and we should be ready here pretty soon. And now there is a spare outlet here for an extra controller. There's enough for 6. So these controllers, motor 1, 2, 3, and 4, they now need to come up through the hole in the deck and connect to the controller on top. Okay, so I'm grabbing the top plate, and before I did that, I removed the rest of the screws from the arms and also the big motor quick lock screws. Now we have 2 groups of cables that's gonna come up through here. The first one is going through the front, and that's the motor control cables. That's the motor ESC cables basically. And then in the back, we have the cable for the PCU that comes up here and goes to, surprisingly, where it says PCU. And it's gonna have the part that says up, up. Then each of these wires has been labeled M1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're starting way down in this corner, and we're working ourselves this way. So here's M2. And we have It's actually laser engraved on the side of the plug here is the M1, and signal needs to be up. So this is M2 or 1. This is M4. M3 and M4. There we go. And I have not put them in these little zip ties yet, but there is zip ties for the official position of these. So I'm going to put these back down under the hole, and that goes up to about here. Let's make sure it's not jamming on anything. There. And there's two thicknesses of screws that goes in here. The thin ones is the frame components attaching together, and the thick ones is for the motor arms. So I should probably try to capture the motor arms real quickly. And that, I can't use the 2mm, I need the 2.5mm Allen wrench for that. So here goes the motor arm screw, hopefully. There it is. And what we did was Matt held onto the bottom screw for this. The thing is, these are made so that they turn, so that you can collapse the arms when you're not flying or for transport. And you can actually see right here, there's also the additional holes in case you're using this as a hexacopter. And I don't have the chance right now, but I'm really looking forward to also try to fly the hexacopter. And the backwards motor arms has two positions. You want to have it in the outside position if the inside is for the hexa setup. So by just moving that arm to the inside hole, you can essentially change this to a 6-motor hexacopter. There, now we have the motor wires plugged in. We need the GPS. Here is the USB cable. We're not going to need that right now, but we can take the GPS. It has a double-sided tape on the bottom. And I'm going to put that over here, and it has an arrow that's going to point forward. Like that. Yeah. And go through the zip tie, and through the zip tie, and now the GPS goes in the top option here, and the cable is marked up. That's actually brilliant, because that's easy to understand. All right, that is connected, and I've got a lot more screws to attach. So I'm switching back to the 2mm, and we're going to start attaching frame screws. So the next thing that's coming up here quickly is going to be putting the radio receiver on. And of course, the good news is that once you get all of this together, hopefully you're not going to have to take it apart in a long time. Now, I'm having some issues getting these screws in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to release all the screws I put in and back them up 2-3 turns, because they are holding down the plate, and the plate needs to move a little bit in order for me to get these screws in. So I'm just backing these screws out a little bit, and let's keep trying. Okay, these can be a little tricky, and what you need to do is like release the screws and then lift the board up a bit so you can get them aligned correctly to the hole underneath. All right, I almost couldn't figure out why I had 2 screws too many. Remember, there's 2 screws right in front of the flight controller here. There. I was getting ready to gently toss them over my shoulder and pretend I never saw them. Don't do that, because this is something that flies. And all screws should be in place before you go flying. So there, I'm gonna tighten these screws real quickly. Say anything. Whew! Well, we have fast forwarded through a whole lot of this, and this is starting to look like an aircraft. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install the receiver, and I'm running out of words. I really believe this is the fastest build I have ever been involved with so far. We've done this in front of the camera, been cooking our way through it. There is one missing component. I ordered the OSD video transmitter, which is a 2000 milliwatt Fat Shark compatible video transmitter with a built-in OSD. That's supposed to be plugged in inside here also, but it's not currently in stock, so I wasn't able to get my hands on that. However, we're not gonna let that slow us down. Next thing we do is stick the radio transmitter or radio receiver right here where they like to have it. Do you think we should turn this so the cables are closer?
Yeah. Antenna's more important.
Huh?
Antenna's more important.
Antenna's more important, like that? Okay, so the white cable, basically the way we put this rainbow of cables in, I should hold that up a little bit so you can see it. There's a whole bunch of rainbow colored cables here, and that the standard one is the S bus, and the white goes up, it goes all the way out to the side. That was one. So that's your receiver power right there. Let's put that down here, and then we have the red, orange, and yellow, and that comes over here, and you can actually see because it's shown on top of by the colors here. And then we have the turquoise coming up on this one. It's about time they start using designer colors in model aircrafts. There we go. And then I removed the cable from the PCU so that we could get that in easier. And I'm gonna put the PCU cable back in on top. Okay, so now we have those cables, and I'm gonna tuck them down in between here for now. The radio receiver is installed. When we start flying this, we want to try to get these antennas out a bit. And we'll probably tape them down so that they come underneath the aircraft and can be seen from any direction, because carbon fiber blocks radio frequency signals. So you don't want to roll these up and hide them on top of this board, because then when you get up in the air, the antennas can't see your radio receiver because they've got carbon fiber between you and it. So that needs to come down on the side. Well, before we are ready for that, we have to make a battery, a built battery box. We can, on the back end here is the flip up release, and we can just pull it out right here. And here is the track that we install the battery to. So to do that, we basically just grab a battery, and we get a whole stack of Align cords, Velcro cords. So we're gonna run that through here. So to make this work, I'm actually putting the fuzzy side of the Velcro outside so we can hook to it. And I think we probably should Matt suggests put some Velcro on the side of the battery and some in here so that the battery won't slide around if you fly aggressively. Then we're gonna come through here and zip tie this down good. It's not zip tying, it's cording it down. And then we're basically ready to make this work. Then we take this and this, and we plug it in. Now the battery board is powered because the battery had been plugged into the board, and up here is the connectors. So when we zip that in this way here, then you basically slide that in, and when you push the last part in, you are connecting the aircraft.
It's good, no smoke.
Nothing smoking, that's a good sign.
Until you turn on.
So I guess pushing this button should turn it on. Woohoo! We have battery indicator, and it looks like and this time I held it down for like 3-4 seconds while it counted up, and we're hot. Okay, so we hooked up using the USB plug to the software for Windows, which we downloaded, and plugged this into the computer. The first thing we had to do was make the receiver bind with the F12E, which has the nice built-in video screen, and is nice for that because it's a really nice transmitter, but a Futaba 14SG would be just as good for this. And as a matter of fact, the receiver we pulled out of the drawer does not have S-Bus. So because of that, we were not able to set up the IOC. However, what we did set up was up on the flight mode switch here, we have manual, then we have stability, and we have GPS angular. And over on the other side, we have the gear. And I like not to get away into RTH by accident. So RTH we set up here on the shoulder, and we also of course set up and tested that failsafe engages when we turn the radio off. So this is now set up, and before I'm going to put that down, and before I forget, I want to say also in the kit is a kit to extend the battery. So you can stagger the batteries and get much more battery by sticking it all the way under here. It also comes with 2 monster sets of Velcro that you can stick in and use to prevent the battery from moving around. So as we said earlier, Velcro would be good, and obviously Align seems to think the same thing. In addition, there is 3 more battery straps, so there's 4 more of these, enough to secure your battery very solidly. And there. Underneath here, remember I mentioned that Align has made these 2 gimbal bars so they can be spread out a bit. They can add about 20 millimeter width to them. And that permits you to use, this is a DJI, and you can see how it's a little bit wider than it's currently set up. But this is a DJI C15 gimbal, and that has enough space to do its 360-degree thing. So there's absolutely no doubt that you can fly a DJI C15 on this quadcopter. And these motors probably have monster power in these 52 millimeter motors. So this is all put together now. We're getting ready to go outside and fly. It has a really cool little startup sequence. You have to hold this button in the back end, and it starts to count across the lights, and when it gets to the other end it beeps, and then you can let go. To disarm, you also hold it in and wait for the lights to count across. And before I do that, I'm also going to mention this fiberglass shell. I managed to make a little crack right here in the seam. And what you really want to do is probably go and grab from Home Depot some of the fiberglass tape for drywall taping, and then put some epoxy on top of that, or rather sugu. Matt is sitting here and whispering to me in the background.
Sugu!
Now that you could hear, even I could hear that. So basically sugu, you massage it up, the 2 components you massage together, and once you have the tape in place, you massage the sugu and you putty it right around these 2 shells down here, because this is the rear end and this is where you're gonna flex it a lot, so it may give. It's very easy to fix. It's a very strong shell and it's gonna work great, but you may wanna do the little sugu fix on that. So I think we're ready to go out and fly, and I thank you for joining us for the build video. We're gonna try to get a little bit of video of this flying, and we've already seen people do some pretty hardcore flying with that, so I'm not gonna try to replicate that today, other than say this is one of the prettiest, most solid copters I have built ever. I'm really looking forward to flying it, and I also think this is gonna be a good product. So here. and all buttons are up. So what we found out on our first go was that manual is essentially rate mode, which is going to be a little bit hairy for beginners. So beginners really need to fire it up and switch to stability, and then you need to get past 50% before it starts taking off, because that's going to be much more relaxed and enjoyable way of flying. So we fired this up. It's saying it's looking for satellites right now. So we're not going to use the GPS right now. We're just going to try to start it again in fire it up. We're going to arm it in manual and then switch it to stability and throttle it up and try to get back in the air smoothly. Yeah. When we first started this arm was really rocking like crazy, and we had to straighten this out really carefully to get rid of the vibrations. Once you get up to flight speed, these props are going to straighten themselves, but until you're at flight speed, they may actually shake a good deal. So just let it straighten itself out, but help it out by having it really straight when you start. So let's try to arm this. The way I'm going to do this is I'm arming it by pushing the 2 sticks down and center, and I'm going to arm it in manual because I haven't really understood how to arm it in stability. When I do it in stability, it turns off. So I'm starting here. I give it a little bit of throttle. You can hear the motor spun up. And then I switch to stability. And there it is. Just like that. How is that for easy flying?
I think the quick green flashes means home lock.
I think so too. This thing is so smooth.
Try the retract.
Oh, right, retract. I forgot about that. Okay, so the way you're going to take off with this, we experimented a bit and you don't immediately realize it, but you can actually arm it and take off in stability. What you need to do is arm it and immediately get up to about 40-50% and keep pushing up. It will not take off until you get to about 60%. So at about 60%, it lifts off, and this is coming up at a speed. It's not coming up like in manual where you can inch it up yourself, but it's coming off the ground and it's incredibly stable. The IMU in this aircraft is unbelievable. So we're gonna go hang some gimbals on this, have some fun, and do a lot of flying. I am really excited about this aircraft. It's heavy. It's not a light, like a small aircraft. It's very heavy, but the way it picks up, it feels like it can easily lift up with a very big camera. This has some serious horsepowers, and you're probably gonna see a 5,000 milliamp battery is gonna eat up pretty quickly. So you may be looking at a 10,000 milliamp 6A or 6S battery. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and sign up, subscribe, and come back for more of these videos.
Whoa! Is that rate or or is it stabilizing?
That's rate mode.
Oh. So it is rate.
Yeah. They want you to use this. So you gotta unplug it and start over.
Okay, so
That's kind of nice.
we're doing this is actually the second time around. We are, because right here is a little loop